such an amazing gift that the Lutheran Church has. So many churches, if they had something structured that way, even though I would disagree with a lot of things that they would practice, but if they had something structured like that, you would have so many more young Christians that have such strong faiths and they're able to go into the world and combat all the sin. But unfortunately, in the last 20, 30 years, I mean, that's just thrown out of the window. We do not have people that are helping their kids have a steady faith. And then you'll have people going to college, become atheists, people that are walking away from their faith or say that they identify as a Christian or a Catholic, but are merely just identifying as the Christian and not living their faith.
Yeah, I think you really touched on one of the biggest problems here, and this is my perspective now as a pastor, is that a lot of the large catechism was developed because pastors were basically biblically illiterate. The large catechism was developed for pastors to learn from. The Really any Christian adult should be learning from the large catechism as well. It's fantastic and it's not hard to read. The small catechism was specifically developed not for pastors. The small catechism was developed to teach the children. The idea is that the parents should be the primary teachers of the children in the faith. Unfortunately, I think we've kind of come to an age where we've compartmentalized everything so much that Bible learning is just a Sunday thing. It's once a week, it's an hour, maybe 2 hours if you go to Sunday school. And the expectation is that the parents expect the pastor to do all the catechesis. Now, I do catechism classes and stuff. I really encourage the parents, and there's some parts of the catechism where I say you need to go home and do this with the parents. But unfortunately, a lot of the time, the parents say, "Well, I'm too busy. I don't feel qualified." I'm like, "Well, there's literally a book. Just have them memorize this. You can work on the memorization. If you have any questions, I can assist." But the idea behind catechesis used to be that the parents who know the developmental level, what the kids are able to handle, that they are teaching them from a young age. Now, just because you're catechizing someone, I've got some kids who are young. Just because I was teaching my children at 4 and 5 years old how to, the Ten Commandments and the Lord's Prayer, like they already know the Lord's Prayer, the Apostles' Creed, the Ten Commandments. They already know all of these things by the time they're like 5 or 6 years old. That doesn't mean that they're necessarily ready for communion, but the point of catechesis is not, hey, let's do this class so you can have communion and never talk about the Bible again and never talk about the Ten Commandments again. But it's supposed to be a lifelong thing, and this begins as early as they can. This is why it's so important to have family devotions. So you sit down as a family, you pray together. You've got 3-year-olds, and they can learn the Lord's Prayer by hearing it again and again and again and again and again and again. If they can learn Baby Shark and Coco Malone, they can learn the Lord's Prayer because their family repeats it a lot of times. Um, yeah, so in addition to necessarily early communion, this is also early catechesis. You, as a parent, you, not your pastor, you as a parent are the spiritual head of the household. The father is the spiritual head of the household. You need to make sure your children are catechized. It is your job. Your pastor is a specialist who can help you with your job, but it is your obligation. Unfortunately, like we've experienced, it becomes, well, I don't teach my kids about the Christian faith. Pastor does that on Sunday. It's just kind of like a 1 hour a week thing that they go to. Then they go to college, and college is not 1 hour a week. College is every single day. And they're, these people are fighting against the Christian faith. If you've only spent 1 hour a week for 2 years of catechesis or whatever, learning about the Christian faith, and then you go to college and every single day everybody around you is an atheist, you are very ill prepared. It is not loving to throw your children into that situation if they're not prepared. I mean, I would kind of oppose most college experiences anyway, but the fact that they are not prepared theologically, that does, have here law moment here, that does fall on the parents. The parents are supposed to prepare them. The pastors are supposed to help, but it is the parents' obligation to catechize their children. And if you can catechize, one of the difficulties I have with early communion, I'm not opposed to the concept. I am opposed to individuals. It isn't necessary. There's no age. There's no specific. There's some people who come in. I've got some people who came in, high school students. This would not be early communion. This is like 15, 16-year-old. And one of them came in and she's going through confirmation class. She is not ready to receive the Lord's Supper. She was raised in an ELCA church. She didn't know anything about the Bible. She didn't know the 10 plagues. She didn't know the Exodus. She didn't know anything that went on in the history of the entire Bible. Um, so there are some children who are capable of learning things at an earlier age than others, and you should teach them as soon as possible. Um, but my difficulty that I found with early communion is not that the kids are not capable; it's that the kids have not been taught. There are some kids who come in and the reason we don't have in our church, the reason we don't have 8-year-olds receiving communion is not because 8-year-olds are necessarily incapable of it, but they either haven't been catechized or they're not mature enough to fulfill the requirements in 1 Corinthians 11 to examine yourself and to properly discern the body and blood. Those are the biblical requirements, not an age. So if you're 40 and you don't meet those biblical requirements, you don't get communion. If you're 8 and you don't meet those biblical requirements, you don't get communion. If you're 8 and you do meet those biblical requirements, then you do get communion. But I have yet, I know that there are some children out there who can do it. My children are not at that maturity level yet. And neither are, I don't think, anybody else in the congregation. But we'll see if it happens. They receive. I'm not opposed to communion at that age, but we follow the biblical standard, not the standard of you have to be 12 before you start first communion, or what, you have to be 14 before you start first communion. I think it's made up.
You would know better since you're a pastor and you've gone through confirmation with different kids. Do you think the big reason why a lot of Lutheran pastors don't practice early communion is because of the fear that people will be upset if they're not properly ready, and some one 8-year-old might be ready to take it and the other might
Oh,
not,
that's a
so
good
will
point.
cause division? Because that's something that I've seen probably that's pretty common, or just kind of like the one huge obvious reason why a pastor might just wanna throw it out the window just for the sake of division.
That that absolutely is a real concern that I could see. Yeah, I could definitely see it causing some consternation. Well, how come my kid can't receive communion? Joe Bob's kid was receiving communion at 8 years old. How come my kid can't? Which should then, and pastors would probably want to avoid that conversation, but really that should be an opening for, well, they catechize their kid and their kid is mature enough. Your kid, you catechize them, but they're not mature enough. Let's talk about the biblical requirements. I think part of it is kind of that concern of kind of alienating some of the members of the congregation. Another one of the, if I want to be pessimistic, I would say another kind of concern is we like uniformity. What is the procedure? When do people receive communion? The Bible doesn't give us a year, but the catechism gives us all the stuff we need to know, but it doesn't say, we want to have, okay, our confirmation program starts when you are this age. It is 2 years long. This is the curriculum. We're so used to this standardized school system mindset for everything else that we learn, that we want to apply that also. So I think part of it is the kind of the fear of alienating some members of the congregation. Some people can receive communion, some people can't. That's its own problem in other spheres as well. But another problem is I think people just want predictable uniformity. And it is a lot of hard work to say, okay, um, this person is at this stage, they can receive communion. This person who's in the same age is not able to receive communion. I have to work with them on this. I have to work with them on this other thing instead. That's really a lot of hard work, especially if it's a pastor who's doing all the catechesis. I do individual. I haven't done an adult confirmation class yet because everybody who comes in, and there have been a lot of people come in from other denominations, they're at different levels. I have to take them at their own level and meet with them until they're ready. And some people it takes 3 months, and some people it takes 3 years. Um, and that's, I mean, for pastors who have bigger congregations than me, God bless you. That's a lot of work to say, okay, I'm going to set aside 2 hours every single Saturday to meet with this one person. So after 3 years, I can get them to communion. That's a huge responsibility, a huge commitment. And I think people would just prefer to say, let's just have a class.
Yeah, and I think that's probably one of the biggest things that scare me through the pastoral work through the Lutheran Church right now, when you have a Lutheran pastors coming from both seminaries, very good seminaries, and that all mean well, and they're wanting to strive to serve a church, but when they get over there, there is a lot of division problems with, I mean, the church might be unified, but also or just doctrine-wise, where the church is divided